everybody, Cori here. So I'm here with some book recommendations for you based on the theme of our February box, which is shipping this week, and that is A Power Within. Now, I wanted to go through my books and pick several books to you with characters that have this internal power that's really cool. Obviously there are so many characters like that out there, so I tried to pick a few books that I haven't talked about excessively on this channel, so maybe you can find something a little bit new. So I have 6 books to recommend to you, so let's just dive right in. So the first book I want to talk about is a book I've read very recently, and that is The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. This book was such a surprise for me. I absolutely loved it. It is set in Manhattan in our world, but in this world magic has been squashed, and it's definitely illegal and frowned upon to do magic. So in this book we follow our main character named Esta, and she has the ability to manipulate time, so she is seen as this very good thief. She can both slow and speed up time and also travel through time. So she has been trained her whole life to be sent on this mission to go back to 1902 to steal a book to help their society. So basically, once somebody who is magical enters Manhattan, there is this force field barrier around the island called the Brink, and once you're in, you cannot leave. The Brink will take away your powers or even kill you. So in this book that Esta is tasked with going to steal, they think they'll find the secrets to the Brink. So obviously chaos ensues from there, but I just really loved this really interesting story. I think if you like the Diviners, you'll also really like this one. It's very different, but it has a lot of that kind of New York old school vibe to it, and I really loved Esta as a character. Like I said, it was a really great surprise and one I think you should definitely check out. Next up I have Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. I think this one leans towards older middle grade rather than YA, I believe, but this was just in a very fascinating world. This book follows a girl named Sunny, and she is of Nigerian descent but grew up and was born in the States, but her family has kind of mysteriously moved them back to Nigeria, and she just finds herself not fitting in. She looks West African, but she is also an albino, so she's very sensitive to the sun, so she can't really go outside and do the things she wants to do, and she doesn't really find herself fitting in at all. Fast forward, she finds some new friends, and they kind of figure out why she doesn't fit in, and it turns out that she is one of the leopard people, who are a magical society, and she is kind of introduced into this magical world that's completely separate from her own, and she has to keep that a secret from everybody she knows. Her and her friends are grouped together and trained and eventually set on a journey to try to track down a magical serial killer who has been stealing and maiming children. It definitely has those Harry Potter vibes, just set in this completely different culture. Something completely like I had never read before. For me personally, I didn't love the writing style, but I definitely think it's a book that deserves attention. Next up, I have The Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo by F.C. Yee. Now this book is just so much fun. It follows our main character Jeannie, who is just your run-of-the-mill, hard-working high school senior, working hard to get into a good school, focusing on studying, just being a regular teenager. And then one day the new kid in school, Quentin, singles her out and kind of reveals that there's something special about her. And it also turns out that he, while also appearing to be a young, normal-looking boy, is also the Monkey King from Chinese mythology. It is just such a fun story of Jeannie while trying to remain a normal teenager while also battling demons in the Bay Area, and it's just, I had a lot of fun reading it. It's kind of silly, it's kind of sassy, it also depicts, I think it really has a great depiction of family dynamic, and if you want something quick to fly through, this is a really good one to pick out. Next up I have For a Muse of Fire by Heidi Heilig. I love Heidi Heilig's writing. This book looks chunky, but again is told in this like kind of mixed media format that makes it a really quick read, but it follows our main character Jetta, and her family are considered the best shadow troupe, which is like a puppet troupe in the land, but really it's not tricks and lights, it's because Jetta has this innate power to tie the souls of the dead to inanimate objects, to animate them, which is highly illegal. It's also set in a world inspired by French colonized Southeast Asia, so her and her family are trying to escape both the colonizers and this upcoming rebellion by using their talent as a shadow troop to try to work their way to this rumored pond or lake that might have some magical healing abilities that might help Jetta and her Malheur, which is inspired by Heidi Heilig's own bipolar disorder. So it might have, might be able to help Jetta live a better life, or so they hope. I loved all the representation in here. Jetta's power is super cool. It's kind of like this necromancy, but in a way I've never seen before. I haven't read book 2 yet, but I really need to, and if you liked mixed media, this is definitely one to pick up. Next up is one that is kind of a cop-out because the main character is technically the only one without powers in his family, but that is White Cat by Holly Black. This is actually my favorite Holly Black series. It's completely separate from her Fae world. But it follows our main character, Castle, who is from a family of curse workers, who are people who can manipulate like your luck or your memories or so many your thoughts. They can just manipulate you simply by touching you with their hands. So they are, again, this is illegal, so they are seen as these con artists, and their family runs cons. But Castle is kind of the only one on the straight because he doesn't have this power. His only secret is he killed his best friend. And as the story progresses, he kind of begins to discover that maybe his brothers are lying to him and maybe he's being conned himself. So he kind of goes out and tries to figure out what's going on. I love this trilogy. I think it's so much fun. I actually recently reread it, I believe last year, and it held up great. I know my edition is fairly pretty, but there are some really ugly covers of this series out there, so don't let that deter you because it is a fantastic read. Last but not least, I have comic for you, and that is Young Avengers. This is volume 1, Style Over Substance. This was just such a surprise for me. I'm not really into like the traditional comic art format. I've tried to get into it, but I just don't love the art style. But this kind of takes that style and just puts it into something, just like transforms it into something a little bit newer. This one is definitely like Avengers for the 21st century, and it follows young Avengers, like teenage Avengers. It follows Wiccan, Hulkling, Kate Hawkeye Bishop, Kid Loki, Marvel Boy, and Miss America. It was such a fun read. I've read the first 2 volumes, but volume 3 is surprisingly hard to find for me for some reason. But this is a really good read, even if you're not like super into the Avengers. Like, you do not have to have read any other Marvel comics to read this. I definitely didn't, and still had a great time reading it. And it's short, it's quick, it's fun. It has turned the comic book world into this much more diverse and fun cast, and I just loved it. So yeah, another great recommendation for you. Alright, so those are 6 books that I would recommend to you based on our Power Within theme. Of course, leave me any of your recommendations down below, or if you've read any of the books and enjoyed them as well, I'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more. Happy reading, and thanks for being awesome. Bye!